This book does not attempt to advocate for the mandatory involvement of women in the diplomatic sphere. It is not meant to serve as a persuasive tool, as there is no necessity for persuasion. By all measures, we are on a steady path towards non-gender diplomacy, despite various obstacles which persist to this day. These play a wide-ranging prohibited role which spans everything from the complete absence of female participation in some countries to an absence from the highest political office in other nations and virtually every scenario in between. While eliminating these obstacles is one way towards achieving equal involvement and representation of women in the diplomatic sphere, such a strategy would depend largely on the open-mindedness of men by whom the barriers were set up in the first place. So this volume does not represent a form of appeal to those who prefer a state of isolation of women from diplomacy. Rather, it attempts to bring to the mainstream the often downplayed and underreported role of women in governance and policy making. More importantly, it strives to showcase, this is my favorite word, the inevitability of increased female representation in the realm of diplomacy, despite deep-seated doubt, resentment, sexism, and misogyny. So, to conclude, diplomacy serves as the heartbeat of international relations. Yet the social inequalities with which women struggle in day-to-day life are mirrored in instruments of international negotiations. Careful analysis of the current state of diplomacy is required to disentangle the ubiquitous gender dimension present in diplomatic roles in order to advance the participation of women in governance and policy making. The common themes that I've addressed here today, coupled with the concrete recommendations put forward by a number of scholars, offer fertile ground from which academics and practitioners and policymakers can analyse and work to improve women's empowerment in the field of diplomacy. So today we are living through challenging times amid shifting geopolitical dynamics, increasing inequality and serious environmental instabilities. Perhaps now more than ever we are relying on our diplomats to chart a course to a safer and fairer world for present and future generations. Should gender inequality in diplomacy persist, the resulting policy development will not adequately meet the needs of women, or worse, will be completely gender blind. Allowing this unequal gender landscape to persist would be immoral and ill-conceived. Immoral because all people have the right to equal participation in political life and public affairs, regardless of their gender. And ill-conceived because we already understand that policies and decisions that respond to the needs of all genders will have a better chance of success. My hope would be that my work, along with so many other academics now engaging in this field, and it's so wonderful that events like this are having the space to have this topic be discussed, and the increasing awareness alongside that of the gender dimensions of international negotiations and representation can be transformed into enhanced action to address gender imbalances in the diplomatic sphere. So thank you for listening, and thank you again for having me.
Thank you very much.